Everyone take their seats, please. We're going to get started.
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Good morning. Welcome to the first ever Calaveras County Economic Summit. This is an interesting position for me to be in because everybody wants me to thank everybody and do it in 5 minutes, so I'm already blowing the schedule. I want to start off by thanking our sponsors today. First, Calaveras County, the City of Angels Camp, the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce, and also Sierra Pacific Industries. Let's give them all a hand, please. My name's Steve Hayward. The reason I'm here is primarily because the first 7 people they asked to host this said no. By way of a shameless economic development plug, I serve as director at large on the chamber, and I'm also the state farm agent. And Angels Camp would love to talk to you. When you're breathing bad air, you're breathing our economic loss right now, so have sympathy. I'd like to kind of give you a sense of where I think we are, and I'm going to do this by way of a tale. When I was asked to be the MC for today's event, I thought I'd better do some research. So I promptly left the county and went to Montana. I will tell you, does anyone in here work for the IRS or the Franchise Tax Board? No. If ever asked, the fact that I spent most of my research with a fly rod in my hand, I will deny part of it. But I want to tell you a little about the town I was staying in, which is called Butte, Montana. Anybody ever been to Butte? Okay. As I was staying in Butte, I was looking around and I realized Butte, Montana, in a lot of ways, is just like Calaveras County. The economy of Butte was started in what? Mining. Mining is largely gone. In fact, it's kind of interesting. When you look at the old mines, they've turned them into art. They hang lights on them and make it believable. The thing I noticed about Butte, and this is by way of a little Butte history, the people of the kids in Butte for generations have done something pretty interesting. They go to the city dump after hours and they find old pieces of bicycles. And they take these old scrap pieces of bikes and they take them home and they assemble new bikes out of the dump. And then they take these bikes, and to the chagrin of their parents who are freaking out about broken bones, take them out in the alleyways behind their homes, set up jumps, and ride the bikes and jump over things like garbage cans and Dobermans and whatever else they can find. Well, there was a young man named Bob in Butte, Montana, many decades ago, who was the resident king of bike recycling. And Bob got to the point where he could build really good bikes, and he was fearless when it came to jumping things like Dobermans and garbage cans. And later on, when he got arrested for being a hooligan, the county sheriff said, you know, you're really evil. And so several decades passed, and when Evel Knievel died, the turnout to his funeral was larger than, I happened to be there when Barack Obama walked in the parade. Evel Knievel's funeral had a bigger turnout than Barack Obama. So here it is, and I have to tell you as a former educator, if you don't know this, this is an allegory. Okay? What Butte has done is figured out how to recycle bikes. Right? When the mines left, Butte had an option. You could have curled up into a suitcase, closed down, and become a ghost town, and you could drive around Montana and you see some ghost towns. But what Butte has done instead is really thrived through a diversified economy. There's a university there, Montana Tech. There's a regional medical center there. There is ranching there. There is forestry there. There's retail there. Right? Now, the fact that all that is there, plus you can buy a 3-bedroom house for $60,000, makes it a pretty nice place. I won't mention the fact that it gets 30 below in the winter, which is why real estate's really cheap. But looking at Butte, here's what I realized. We need to figure out, and I think that's what drew us together, we need to figure out how to recycle bikes in Calaveras County. And there's been momentum toward becoming bike recyclers, really in the last, I think, year, and I'll tell you kind of where I see us being today. For the first time that I know of in history, focus from a lot of different segments has come together with the subject of how do we make our economy actually thrive. In the last year, an alliance has been formed for the first time that I know of between the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors, the Angels Camp City Council, the Chamber, and a lot of other civic groups. And this is what this meeting was born out of. In my estimation, that's our work today. And we're going to break this down into sort of 3 segments. We're going to have a couple people speak to us, but the structure of the day looks like this. We're going to be breaking into groups. There are 7 different groups you can participate in. And I'm going to, do we have a slide for that, Diane? There. Okay. So the groups are tourism, agriculture and natural resources, retail, industry and emerging technology, professional services, infrastructure, and quality of life. Right? If you walk out of the room during the breakouts, which you'll know when that's happening, if you go north, you'll see a yellow sign directing you to whichever of those sessions you want to participate in. While it's a good thing to plan on spending the day in a session, if you find out it's not a good fit, by all means, don't leave and go home. You can switch sessions. Okay? After taking a break for lunch, during which time you will see, and you saw them in the lobby, we have posters and displays involving where infrastructure currently exists in the county, which I think is a good thing to know. So please take a look at that. One other announcement, and I'm looking at the guy from the theater. They really don't like it if we eat in here. It's kind of late to tell you that now. During lunch will be held out in the lobby and also outside. I know it's going to be hot, but please don't eat in the theater. After lunch, we're going to reconvene in our breakout sessions after hearing a guest speaker. And then at the close of the day, and all this is on your agenda, which is in your green folder. At the close of the day, we're going to get together with a report back on sort of what the consensus was and what we discovered in this today. You know, when I look at what I hope we get at the end of the day, are some ideas which, in my opinion, are at the core of why we need economic development. I'm the father of 3 kids who live in this town, and I would really like it if those kids had the opportunity, after getting an education, to return here and thrive. I don't know if that's very possible. I would like to use that as a barometer, right, for our success. And I don't think anyone in the county could possibly disagree with that being a good goal. Am I right? That's the day. I'd like now to introduce our first guest speaker, whose name is Steve Art. Steve comes to us from Lincoln, up in Placer County, where in January of 2001, he took on the position of being the Economic and Redevelopment Manager for the city of Lincoln. I don't know if you know the history of Lincoln, but Lincoln, a lot like Calaveras County, was kind of a one-industry town. When you buy clay pipe or sewer line and that kind of thing, you know where that comes from? Lincoln. Lincoln is Clayville. Well, in recent years, Lincoln went from the smallest, one of the smallest cities in California, to being the fastest growing city of California, and that's during Steve's tenure. So with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Steve Art.
Well, thank you very much and good morning. It's always some pressure to be the first speaker of the morning because everyone anticipates how great you'll be. So hopefully I will. And I won't try to keep you too far behind schedule today. I know you have a busy agenda today. And you have some excellent speakers today. And I'm a wanderer, so we're going to take this thing out and kind of wander around here. First off, thank you very much for inviting me here to your county this morning. I've lived up here in the Sacramento region for about 7 years now, and this is the first time I've had a chance to visit Calaveras County, which kind of goes along with some of the things we'll talk about this morning, marketing of your county and getting people here in tourism to your area. You've invited some excellent speakers, and I admire you for the quality and the extent of speakers that you have invited out here today. I know Amy Wexel from Buxton is here today, and they are the state's leader, if not the nation's leader, in helping you bring retail and helping develop in what you need in this area. Janelle Norton from the California Tourism Association is here. She's no longer Janelle Norton, she got married, but I knew her as Janelle Norton. Visit that session, she'll talk about rural tourism in here. Kay Reynolds for Business for Tool Success. If you aren't using Business for Tool Success on your website right now and encourage your business is to do that, I would encourage you greatly to get that started. Kind of the next slide will tell you about what I kind of want to go through today in detail, trying to keep us on time. We'll kind of talk about what Lincoln is. Now, the worst thing about going to any talk about these sort of things is when the speaker starts talking, they talk about everything they did in their community, and you realize it doesn't relate to anything we're doing here in Calaveras County. So I'll just give you a short background on what we're doing in Lincoln. But really what can help you in Calaveras County will be what we're doing on the area cooperation, regional cooperation, state cooperation, what we're doing on the federal level, and then what we're trying to do as far as economic development in our area here. First, to talk about what is the city of Lincoln. Next slide, please. To give you a little background on Lincoln is, Lincoln was incorporated in the year 1890. And what really put Lincoln on the map is what Steve said, is clay. Up until, well, the reason Lincoln is on the map is in the 1860s when the railroad is coming west. The railroad eventually wants to end up in Marysville, California. But they run out of money at a little town called Auburn Ravine Station. And Auburn Ravine Station later becomes the city of Lincoln. And everyone knows who the city of Lincoln is named after. It's named after Abraham Lincoln. No. But that's what everyone thinks. It's named after Charles Lincoln Wilson. Charles Lincoln Wilson worked for the railroad, and he does the original mapping of the city, so they say you can name it after yourself. So his wife says, well, you can choose Charles Lincoln or Wilson. She says, I like the name Lincoln the best, so she named it after his middle name, and we became Lincoln, California. In about 1865, the railroad gets enough money. At that time, Lincoln's really thriving, doing real well. 1865, they get enough money to complete the railroad spur to Marysville. Lincoln dies out. The 5 bars in town all closed down, nowhere to get a drink. The 3 hotels all closed down. Lincoln is only known for mining low-grade coal until about 1875 when they come across a vein of clay in the ground. Just so happens 3 gentlemen, Charles Gladding, Peter McBean, and their financial partner, George Chambers, are in San Francisco. They own a clay factory in Chicago, Illinois. They're out here looking at the new West Coast, seeing how they bring clay out here. They hear about clay in the small town of Lincoln, come to Lincoln, test the clay, find out it's the nicest clay they've ever seen, even better than their clay in Chicago, Illinois. In 1875, they invest a whopping $12,000 into the city of Lincoln and open up Gladding McBean Factory. Anyone ever been to Gladding McBean Factory at the Feats of Clay? See, obviously, we're not doing a good enough job of marketing it out here. If you haven't been to Feats of Clay, you need to come out here. 1875, they open up Gladding McBean Factory. They now produce all the sewer pipe that's in the ground, and their motto is, when you flush, think of us. So that's it. Plus, 1906, the earthquake of San Francisco hits. San Francisco is completely destroyed. The newspaper articles of 1906, 2 years later, say small town in Placer County rebuilds San Francisco. That's Lincoln. All the terracotta on those buildings, all done in Lincoln. So that's really what has put us on the map. Up until about the year 1995, when the city council decided to make a change and to go for growth. They were a community that was really hurting. If you wanted to buy a box of paper clips in City Hall, you had to have a reason to buy that box of paper clips. There was no money. They decided to have growth. Next slide, please. And in 1995, with that growth, they started really growing. From the year 2002 to 2006, we were the fastest growing city in California. From 2004 to 2006, we were the fastest growing city in the United States. 231% growth in that time. How that has affected us, and we'll talk about that. Some of it really that has affected us is in our demographics. We went from everyone knowing your name in the middle of town to bringing in a big influx specifically from the Bay Area. All those people who sold their home that they bought in the Bay Area in 1962 for $19,000, sold their house for $1.2 million in 2001, came out to Lincoln, bought 2 or 3 homes, and really changed the demographics of Lincoln. So one of the challenges we had to face when I came aboard in 2001 is, how do we get those people involved in the community? And I think the biggest thing that anyone can do is information, information, information. We opened up City Hall to all of our citizens. We didn't invite them just into City Hall, but we went out to our community to tell them what our plans are for the future and help them drive what the city of Lincoln is going to look like. If you have not done a strategic plan for your county, with your county involved in it, I know this is the start of it today, it is something that has helped drive us. What has been a big factor shown us in our last 2 elections? They have been uncontested elections, which means we haven't had 20 people running for 2 council seats. 2 council seats both times, 2 people running for it, which means we must be doing something right, that we don't have a lot of people running because there's a single issue. It's because we've opened up and made ourselves transparent in there. We have created economic stability. As I said, we were a town that was dying off. There was no money in the city coffers. We have now increased our retail sales and our sales tax in the city. We are one of the few cities, ourselves in Rockland, that have actually seen an increase in sales tax over the last 2 years, or over the last 2 quarters. It's only been about 4%, but it has been an increase in our sales tax because we brought retail in there. And I know there are people who want to keep you rural, and that's a great thing to do. But if you also want the services, and you want this high school to remain vibrant, if you want parks, you want to be able to get things for your community, you need to have sales tax. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to bring in the big box stores here. It just is going to mean that you're going to encourage sales tax revenue. You want tourism to come in here. You want your citizens to spend money. That is what helps drive the local economy. Tourism is an important thing. The great thing about tourists, and we'll talk about that later, is they come into your community, they spend money, and the best part, they leave. We are a huge job exporter. Lincoln will probably always be a huge job exporter. You always want to turn that around. I know that's a big problem here in this county too, is most people leave the county to do their job, which means they're spending their money during the lunch outside of this county, which means they're probably shopping on the way home outside of this county. You want to get them in there. It's your decision to make what sort of economic impact and what sort of industry, business that you want to bring to this community here. We made a decision that we are going to try to do at this point as much retail as possible. The only problem with retail is Target opens up in your community. They employ 83 people. 5 years later, Target still employs 83 people. They don't expand jobs. What we really want is to bring that person in who's got an idea with 3 employees, hires 5 more in the first 5 years, hires 10 more, and certainly becomes a large company. And that's what you really need to look at, is those industries that are going to expand the employment base and as well as the wage base. Next slide, please. I'll try to go a little quick because I don't want to hold you here. Where are we today? We just created a new general plan in the city of Lincoln. Our current general plan says it will be about 55,000 people. We're going to expand that population to about 130,000 people, but it almost triples the size of the city with about a 40% open space. So it's going to have a large open space component, because what we want to do is we want to provide our citizens an opportunity to commune with nature, to realize that there is open space, that they can have a part of nature, and we've done that with our new general plan. And we've now created an image that we know we're not an island. It used to be that communities sat alone and said, how do we get everything into us? You can no longer do that anymore. You know, there are no lines between cities anymore. Out here there tend to be, but for the most part people don't know when they leave one city and go to the other. We need to work with our neighboring communities, not only our neighboring cities, but with our neighboring counties, to find out what they're doing to drive economic development. And we've done that, and we'll talk about that later on. Next slide, please. Where are we today? I talked about the struggle with the new and the old. We have a downtown area, and certainly everyone wants to preserve the historic old areas there. We have a new bypass freeway that just broke ground. We had the groundbreaking ceremony 2 weeks ago. We'll start breaking ground on that within the next 60 days. That's going to affect our downtown. A lot of the traffic's going to go around downtown. How do we remain that viability in downtown? And that's working with our Downtown Business Association and help with the City Council and our redevelopment agency bringing in tourism to that area. Next slide, please. One of the biggest things we did, Mark Luster, who invited me here today from Sierra Pacific, wanted me to talk about the All-America City. We became an All-America City in 2006, and if anyone doesn't know what the All-America City is, it's an award given by the National Civic League for communities that have gone out and have attacked and addressed certain issues in their community and have dealt with those and solved those issues. So most people think an All-America City is they get my trash cans out on time every single Wednesday afternoon, you know, and they sweep the streets and all that. It's everything with the city. It really isn't. You really just address 3 key components in your city, and one of them being youth-oriented. But what the All-America City program really did for our community was help us identify many more programs and help us make relationships between those organizations that never had relationships before. We have a counseling center that provides counseling, free medical service, referrals. It's called the Lighthouse Resource Center. We knew they existed, but we really never knew quite what they did. Well, because of the All-America process, we used them as one of our key components. The first year we went in 2005, we didn't win the competition because we really didn't have a bind between those. In that 1 year that we went between between competitions, we were actually able to create a stronger bond with the Lighthouse Resource Center. The City of Lincoln now gives them $45,000 a year to help them with healthcare services, because we realize every time we can help someone keeping them out of the hospital, it's going to help the healthcare industry keep our insurance costs down, help them with referrals. So those relationships were key. And I would encourage the county, because counties can do that, to go for the All-America City. You may not win, but I guarantee what it's going to do is it's going to bring you closer with your community and help you identify programs that need help, that are doing great things in your community, and that are youth-oriented, because youth are the future of this county, or the future of every county. Probably every youth is talking about leaving here when they get done with high school, and hopefully they'll come back someday. I mean, most of them want to go to the big city. They get that lure of that, and we find that in Lincoln also. Next slide, please. Okay, let's start talking about what we're doing for economic development and the local area competition. And one of the things that we're doing is shared economic development. And, you know, instead of looking up these slides, I actually have papers here. I'll make it easier for me. One of the things that we do is regional economic development. Once again, we realized we are not an island in the city of Lincoln. So we actually invited all the economic development professionals from our region, Placer County, together, and we meet on a quarterly basis to discuss issues of economic development. We'll talk about K's tools for business success. We'll talk about redevelopment. We'll talk about what we are doing for economic development. It used to be, once again, you didn't want to share your economic development ideas because you felt that they would steal your ideas. In economic development, there are no new ideas. Everyone knows what everyone else is doing. And for the most part, if a company is looking to move into your local community, they're looking at every other community around you. Site developers, site searchers, they know about your area, but they also know about every other area. So it can only enhance you if maybe your city, Angels Camp, doesn't receive a business in here, but the next city over, Murphy, something like that, would receive the business. There's going to be some influx of dollars that will come into Angel Camp because of this industry coming into the city of Angels Camp. And whether that's agriculture, whether that's manufacturing, whatever it may be, you're going to define it. So work regionally with your economic development. One of the things we did was we did some shared advertising. I don't know if the newspaper people here, and they probably hate me for saying this, but every year we get hit up by the local flyers for, you know, the magazines and newspapers and all that. We realized that we could probably get a better bang for our buck if we all pooled together and advertised. It saves us money as local communities. It gets our word out. It allows us to have more dollars, so we're able to actually go out of our local area into the Bay Area to try to attract some of those businesses to move to our area here. Green. We are now becoming a regionally green. Placer County wants to be known as the greenest community in the United States. I talked about Gladdy McBean. Gladdy McBean was California's first green industry. Clay industry, 100% of everything that goes out of the ground can go back into the ground. So it's a green industry. We're working together cooperatively as a region to create ourselves green. To have, one of the things, solar, everyone's having solar in their community. I'll make you a bet every city in here, when you go in the building department, there's a different process to get solar onto your roof. And it's probably a pain in the butt for everyone to do it in every city. We've now got together as at least Lincoln, Rockland, and Roseville in South Placer County and have devised a method. So the application is exactly the same, the fee is exactly the same, and the process that you go through to get solar onto your area is exactly the same. We're also looking at bringing in more ag tourism, and Janelle Norton will talk about ag tourism. It's very important to our area here. It's great in this area here. I mean, I wish I knew more about the wineries out here and knew more about the ag tourism. I would come into this area. I'm your perfect demographic. Come into this area, spend the money, and go back to my house when I'm all done. We also do some things with land use, such as we have a foreign trade zone in our area. The city of Roseville was going to lose a company that was going to move to Europe if they couldn't get foreign trade zone status. We were able to give them about 20 acres of our foreign trade zone for them to use as their, to keep the company in town. Once again, regional cooperation to keep their here. Regional cooperation, also some of the other things we do is the blueprint. The blueprint was something that we did to talk about, and that'll be the next slide, please. We'll talk about what SACTO did, SACOG did, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. It was in the Wall Street Journal just the other day. It's really talking about a land use plan for our region. If you haven't done something like that to know what the future of your entire county is going to look like, it should be part of your economic development study. We'll also use SACTO. SACTO is our regional marketer. I can't go to Europe and market the city of Lincoln. I utilize SACTO. So once again, we're utilizing partners to help us market our area. Find as many partners as you can to market this county the way you can. We use the California Welcome Center. We will use our regional redevelopment agencies. We get together, it's the same thing as economic development. The redevelopment agencies get together to talk about what we're doing there. Is there a redevelopment agency in Calaveras County? No? None of the cities have them? One city has them? If you can form them, they're still forming them. They're a great thing. The tax increment is certainly fantastic to get back to help remove that blight. We'll use MetroPulse, a very important tool that we just started through the Metro Chamber. One of the things that we always want to know is how many employees do we have in the county? How many employees do we have in the neighboring county? Because once again, El Dorado County, Placer County, Yolo County, Yuba County, they're all pretty much one big regional area. So with MetroPulse, we started a tool now where we go out and interview businesses about what they're doing, how many employees they have, what their annual generation is, are they going to expand, are they going to decrease size? It's all on a website. I'm able to then go on and get regional statistics. I can't delve down enough where I can find out what business A is making per year. I can't go into someone else's county, but I can get county-wide statistics. It's a great tool for us to use to help us develop what we are doing in the future and what areas we need to develop on. We also need to worry about education, and the very last thing is linking economic development to education. And that is a great website to go on. It talks about careers that are available, even up in this area here, and talks about to high school children what they can do to log on and find out what careers are available in the Sacramento region for them so they don't leave our area and go to another community. We also work on statewide cooperation with Team California, helping to drive industry throughout the city. That's for the state of California. Amy's here from Texas. We want to get Texas from stop swiping all of our businesses. We want to stay in here in California. So we work at Team California. We do legislative days in the state, go down to Sacramento, talk to our legislators. And we also, within the city of Lincoln at least, we use a lobbyist to help us drive some of our issues, and they've been very, very helpful. If you don't have a county-wide lobbyist on the state level, very important. You should have one of those. Next slide, please. On our federal level, we use a cap-to-cap, which is the capital of California to the capital of Washington, D.C. Over 400 people attend each year lobbying for issues on the federal level. We in the city of Lincoln we've been going now for 7 years, and we have received about $10 million in federal appropriations just from going back there. So people in our community will say, well, you know, you spent $4,000 to go back there. What did you get in return? And we're able to say about $10 million. So it really has been very valuable for us to go there. And we had a federal lobbyist before the downturn in the economy, and this year we decided not to go with a federal lobbyist. The next thing is the most important thing we talk about is tourism. I'm the outgoing president of the Placer Valley Tourism, which is a business improvement district, which does an assessment, not a tax, an assessment on hotel night stays. So every guest who stays in a hotel in Placer County, or at least in the South Placer County area, pays $1 a night, and in Roseville $1.50 a night. That money goes into a tourism fund, which we now have an executive director, full paid staff that is driving tourism. Sports tourism is huge. If you don't know the amount of money that is spent by these kids coming into your community to play softball, soccer, to visit here, is amazing. An average girls softball team will spend on each girl per day, besides what they spend, an additional $16 per day on every girl coming in. So a family of 3 or 4 girls and a baseball team of 50 girls coming in, that's a lot of money that is being spent in your restaurants, in your hotels. If you're not looking at sports tourism now, you're missing the boat. That's where the huge part of what's going on now. And the nice thing about sports tourism is, once again, they come in, they leave your community, and it's pretty much open green space because you're talking baseball fields and soccer fields. So tourism is huge in any community. I see my friend Tim Johnson just walked in from back here. Great speaker that's coming later on this afternoon. He's going to talk about more of the concepts of economic development and what it really means. He ran an economic development corporation. I ran an economic development committee for our city, and we'll talk about the difference of both today. Next slide, please. Let's see. Once again, it's things we're talking about: cooperation, cooperation, cooperation. These are agencies. If you aren't cooperating yet, and I know the Chamber put this on today, this is great that they were able to get almost 150 of you together this morning to talk about regional cooperation and what you want to do in the future of this county and each of the communities there. It's very important. If you're not tied in with all of these up here, you're once again missing the boat. These are all very important venues, organizations to have along with you to help drive what the economic development, what the future of this county is going to look like. All right, I'm almost out of time. One of the things that we need to talk about is organizational structure. The next slide, please. Corporation versus committee. Tim will be great today, this afternoon, to talk about Economic Development Corporation. You've ran what, about 3 of them? He has ran 3 of them. He's also worked for city government, so he knows both ends of it. So I'll let him talk about a traditional corporation. And usually corporations are funded by government and private business. There's some hybrids of those that go around. He's got an excellent article. I don't know if he brought copies of that today, but he forwarded that to me. Traditional economic development corporations originally were funded by corporations. They found those failed because corporations dropped out. They're now tended to be funded by corporations and communities. The problem with those is the city of XYZ gets a business, the city of ABC gets upset that they got the business and we didn't get the business, so they stop funding it. If this county is truly going to get together, there needs to be regional cooperation and realization that you're not going to get 100% of the pie all the time. The largest city is probably going to get most of the economic development. But eventually down the line, and we've realized that in Lincoln, is that eventually it will come to you, the economic development. If your county gets stronger, you're going to get stronger as an individual community. You may not see the direct dollars day one, but eventually down the line you will. In our area, we saw Roseville, largest sales tax producer in the state of California. Still is. They kill us every time we go down there. They have new shopping centers opening every day. They're running out of room. Things are coming up to Lincoln. Once again, we want to maintain open space. We want to retain a sense of small community. We've done that with our general plan. But we will get the employers up there. We will get the industry into our key areas that we've designated for industry. Those key areas that we've dealt with for retail will come to our area. We just need to wait our time. As our mayor likes to say, the city of Roseville got their first major restaurant, Macaroni Grill, when they got to 40,000 people. We have 38,000 people in our town. We did a count about 2 weeks ago. We have 63 places in town that you can eat at, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So we've kind of almost overdone our retail right now. We're going to have some vacancy come up in the future. The housing downturn has really affected us. But we have a committee in our town. We have an economic development committee. That's going to be the decision you're going to make. Are you going to have a committee? We do. The county of Placer has a committee, and both cities of Rockland and Roseville have committees. Committees tend not to be decision-making organizations. They tend to really are more advisory and more informational. They really aren't making a decision. Tim will talk later on about corporations and what they can do, that they're actually physically going out, attracting business in, actually are doing the ground and work. I don't want to say our committees aren't, but you need to make a decision whether you want a corporation or a committee. Next slide, please. And finally, a question that you need to ask. Have you got an economic development plan? Something very, very important for your community. We currently in Lincoln do not have one because we want to wait till that bypass comes in before we create an economic development plan. Your economic development plan is only going to be good for 3 to 5 years. It really is not any good after that because times change. So I knew that I didn't want to create one until after this bypass was done because it's going to have a huge effect on our downtown. And I didn't want to pay $100,000 for an economic development study that was going to die out before this bypass is done. So we will have one done. But if you want to look at a fantastic economic development study, the city of Roseville, log onto their website and pull down their economic development plan. It is a comprehensive plan that looks at every avenue that the city want to move on. And their Deputy Director, Julia Burrows, and I invite her out to a study of yours, can talk about what they've done and how they're coming along step by step to bring that to fruition, and they've done a fantastic job to do that. Have you got an economic development goal? You know, I heard here coming this morning, we have people here who are from the ag industry, people here who are business, people here from the green side, people from the government side, 4 different avenues. And you probably all meet in the middle and can't come up with a consensus of what you want to do. But you really need to do. And there can be a blending, a melding of all. We managed to do that. We managed to do that with open space, with keeping those open lines of communications, and realizing, once again, that not everyone's going to win 100%. There needs to be some give and some take. And we've done that in the city of Lincoln, and it has made us very, very successful. And that leads us to the final point, the consensus of all the partners. Once again, if you really want to make this county successful, and I think we've done that in Placer County, it's because we've got together, there's been some shared missions, some shared goals, some shared visions between all of us, realizing that eventually at the end of the day, we're all going to be in a win-win situation if we all work together to create the best community we can. And I believe that's my last slide. Yes, it is. And at 9:15 is when I'm supposed to be off. I cut off. I thank you very much. Do you want to take a question or so? How do you want to do this, Steve? I'm not sure if there are any. I just answered everything. Are there any questions out there? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Tim Shear, City Administrator for Camp. You mentioned that you're going to wait for an economic plan for your downtown until after the bypass goes in. We have a bypass that's going in, and so a lot of concern about the impact of the bypass. And so I'm not sure if that's logical to wait till after the fact to develop a plan if you're going to try to mitigate potential impacts in the future.
And we went through that exact same discussion, and the decision was it was really a financial decision. Let's wait, because we weren't sure what sort of impact it would have as far as what will bypass our city. It was originally built to take all the large trucks off, bringing in our downtown. The bypass, we wanted to just see, will a lot of the single-family cars that we want to come to our downtown are going to take that bypass off there. We were also in the middle of our general plan when we were getting ready to do this. So the general plan had an effect because we weren't sure of the land uses that were going to be along that bypass. It was just a decision, economics, and just the uncertainty of what that bypass is going to do. We are working with our downtown to make sure our general plan, all roads within every new community, we've set up villages. All villages will have roads that will lead to our downtown area. So we are working to make sure our downtown becomes viable. But once again, to talk about industry that we want to attract, we just weren't quite sure what the bypass effect would have on it. Yes, sir. Last question.
How do you fund your park facilities for the soccer tournament?
We have a parks fee with our great growth that was going on from 1999 to 2005. The developers came in and we've had them put the mitigation money aside for the parks development there. Right now, that parks fee is certainly drying up. We have some neighborhood parks that aren't being built right now. The neighbors aren't real happy about that, but there just isn't any money available right now. One of the things we're looking at is this Placer Tourism Business Improvement District. We're looking at bringing in a facility that will have like 18 soccer fields. We would like to get a Major League Soccer franchise out there. Lou Wolf has the Northern California franchise. He wants to move to Santa Clara, but that's not working, so we've gone and met with him. He's the owner of the Oakland Athletics, to bring it out to our area. We'd love to have a large facility like that. So that would be bringing a big regional park there. So it's developer fees that are paying for those. You want one last, because she's asking. Yes?
Steve, how is Lincoln faring with the downturn in the residential real estate market and the flattening of the commercial real estate market? What impact is that having on the city financially?
A huge impact, as it does in every city in California. We just hired a new city manager who came aboard in May 1st, and day one they came to him and said, okay, you have to find $1.5 million because we have a deficit in funding. So we've had to cut back quite a bit. We haven't had a big impact on foreclosures and a lot of the residential property that's remained vacant. It's about 3% in our area, so we have been pretty stable in that area because a lot of the Bay Area people who bought houses out there have the finances to keep that house going right now. It has affected us greatly in the retail development. A lot of the retail development is we have a couple of shopping centers that are near completion that are having trouble filling up their retail space right now. But they all got business financing to build those centers, so they had the financing, so they built the centers. We're worried about, the last thing you want is retail centers that sit vacant. They just become a blight in your community. I'm certain Amy can talk to that later on today. But, you know, we can't tell someone you can't build, they get the building permit longer. So it has some effect on that. We're certainly going out marketing, which talks about, there are folders around, and I set some around. There's some on the front table if you want to start handing these around. Marketing folders that we send out to businesses, to retail. We give them to our developers. We give them to our real estate community that talks all about Lincoln. We also developed a Stop, Shop, and Celebrate guide, which talks about our downtown. It's got a map of our downtown area, the list of all of our businesses. We do this on a quarterly basis because businesses come and go in historic downtowns. It is set up as a mailer, so you can take it and mail it away to your family, so when you come into town. I hope I provided you some information, some guidance in the future. I wish you the best of luck. I am going to come back and visit your county and the wineries and everything out here and spend some money in your community. I wish you the best of luck today. Remember, work together. You have a fantastic future ahead of you. Thank you.
You know, I think some of the things we see on this slide could be the roadmap for today. It's called plan, have goals, and get a consensus, right? A big takeaway I got from your talk, Steve, the thing that Lincoln is doing that I think we all really need to think about is we need to realize bypasses have an economic impact, and we need to plan on that. By way of another indicator of a successful and happy and thriving economy, counties that party together thrive. To that end, you are all officially invited to the Chamber's celebration of the National Day of the American Cowboy. And if that doesn't sound like a party, I don't know what does. You know, when I was in Montana, they were preparing for the Testicle Festival. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I promise you there will be none of that here. It is on July 26th. There's horseshoes, branding parties, a cutest cowgirl contest, and live music by the California Outlaws. Diane, I don't know where you are, but I'm assuming there will be tickets available here. We need your help, and it's a great party, okay? At this point, can you put the slide up with the breakouts on there again, please? Or not. We're going to break into breakout sessions. Again, the agenda for that is on your sheets. The plan right now is to convene in those breakout sessions till 11:45, at which time we will break for lunch until 1, and then we're going to meet back in this room at 1 o'clock. So have a great day, and we'll see you back here.